And it's a great brag that we in Wisconsin have Mary's one apparition site.
This is true.
It just makes us feel all so good.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Vox Pauli podcast. This afternoon, we have a very, very, very special guest. It's going to be a bit unique because he's also my coworker here in the Lord's Vineyard at St. Paul's Catholic Student Center. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the former freshman intern, now the director of advancement.
That is correct.
That is correct. Mr. Samuel Larson. Samuel, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's awesome to be here.
Oh,
it was hard to make the whole 14-step journey to get here, but am I glad to be here?
We're happy that you are here.
It is good that we are here.
Yeah, it is very good that we are here today indeed. And, Sam and I, we work across from each other. And, this afternoon, this is pretty much just like any other Friday afternoon here working at St. Paul's. Sam and I are in the development office here with producer Kennedy as well. And this is just like, Friday afternoon. We're about to head out for the weekend. We've worked a long week. We talk about these things anyways, so we figured might as well just put some lights and a microphone instead and let's have a good time.
Exactly. So, hey, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Now, Sam is a great guy, but he's not, a good enough guest to just be brought on by himself. The main reason why we wanted to have him on the show was because not this Thursday, but the next Thursday, October 9th, is the feast day of Our Lady of Champion.
No, correct me. That is when they'll be hearing this, correct? Yeah. Okay, so today, as you're listening right now, continue, please.
Is the feast day of Our Lady of Champion, and Samuel is a bit of a, expert.
I wouldn't call me an expert in most things, frankly.
But a fair amount about Our Lady of Champion, and so I figured you'd be the guy I want to go to learn about the only Marian apparition in all of America.
Only approved Marian apparition site in the United States.
In the United States. And so, Samuel, tell us a little bit about Our Lady of Champion.
Okay, well, for those who aren't aware, a Marian apparition site in general is just a place where Mary has appeared and it's been investigated by the local ordinary, the diocese, whoever's in charge there, and approved, which just means that it is worthy of belief by the faithful. They don't have to believe it. No one has to. It's not, it's not in the deposit of faith per se. But it's been investigated and found worthy of belief. And so Our Lady of Champion, the story behind that is in 1859, there was this young woman named Adele Bryce. She was a Belgian immigrant so just for some context, this all takes place in God's country, the Green Bay Diocese, of course. Champion, Wisconsin, not far from the future home of the world champion Green Bay Packers. And so Adele Bryce, she was born in Belgium across the pond. And when she was growing up, she came from a devout family. She wanted to be a sister serving Belgium. But then due to all the economic hardships that were kind of embroiling Belgium at this time, there was famine, not a lot of work. Her family immigrated to America. And at this time, between 1853 and 1858, there's this huge exodus from Belgium to specifically northeast Wisconsin, whereas today now this is the largest Belgian community in the world outside of Belgium. And so Adele Bryce came, and she settled in this part of the state, and every day she would walk miles and miles to go to the mill, bring in grain to be ground, things like that. And one day, I believe it was early October 1859, she was walking in the woods, and she saw just this dazzling, resplendent woman standing in the trees not far from her. And she stopped and she looked, and the woman didn't say anything. She didn't really know what to make of it. And then when the lady disappeared, she kept walking. A few days later, it was Sunday Mass on October 9th, 1859. And Adele was walking to Mass with her sister and a friend, and saw the same thing. This dazzlingly beautiful woman, white dress, gold sash across the waist, standing in the trees, didn't say anything, and so she kept walking, went to Mass, received communion. After Mass, she asked the priest what she should do about this. And the priest told her, if you see this woman again, ask her, in God's name, who are you? And so as Adele was walking back from Mass that day, she saw this woman again. And she asked her, she spoke and said, in God's name, who are you? And the woman answered, I am the Queen of Heaven. And so Adele could see this woman, she could hear the woman, her friend and sister could not. And so Adele told them, hey, the Queen of Heaven is here. You guys should probably, probably kneel down or something. And so they kneel as well. But basically, and I'm not going to quote it because I get the quote wrong. I don't want to misquote, our mom too much. Mary told her, go out into this and teach the children of this wild country what they need to know for their salvation. And she said a few other things about, what to do. But her final message was, go and fear nothing. I will help you. And so Adele went out after that, took that message to heart, and she would go all across the surrounding area, like miles and miles and miles, and she would go door to door. Granted, each door was a mile apart, and she would ask to do the household chores of that house in exchange for being allowed to teach the kids the catechism or teach kids their faith. There wasn't a formal catechism back then per se. And so she would do this for a long time, just going and teaching kids throughout the area the faith. And then oftentimes as she would do this, the parents would listen in and they would learn as well. And within a couple of years, they began to formed like a convent and a school, and other people would come to help them in this as well. And so even though Adele was never formally a sister, like she never received, the holy orders of a nun, if you will, she and the sisters there, they're kind of lay sisters, if you will. They would still work for their whole lives to help teach the faith and instruct the kids, and now there's still a location to this day.
Sam, thank you so much for that thorough description and story of Our Lady of Champion. Now, I know this is not only a story for Marian believers and people that have a devotion to Our Lady, but it's also a deeply personal story in your own life. One that you reside in the Green Bay Diocese,
of course,
it's God's country, as you like to say, but also it's within your family as well that has a particular devotion to Our Lady of Champion. So talk about kind of the role that Our Lady of Champion played in your life and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just before that, I do want to give a bit of context because what we didn't mention before is that one of the reasons why the shrine became so popular to this day is because 12 years after the apparition, there was what we call the Peshtigo fire. And so the Peshtigo fire, for those who aren't aware, is even to this day, the deadliest fire in American history. Between 1,500 and 3,000 people are estimated to have died in this fire. It was just an exceptionally hot, dry summer. And there's a few other fires that same day in the surrounding areas as well. And so, long story short, this huge inferno blazed throughout all of northeast Wisconsin, burned a huge amount of the state. And so as this fire was encroaching upon the little chapel that Adele's dad had actually built after the apparition, all the people in the area who had known and venerated Mary there, they all fled to the shrine. And so as the fire came closer, they would process around the grounds of the shrine. When the fire got too hot on one side, they would move to the other side of the grounds and process there. They were carrying around a statue of Mary, praying the rosary through the night. And eventually, in the middle of the night, for the first time in a long time, the skies broke and rain came down and put out the fire. And the miraculous thing about that is that when the fire was put out, when the sun rose the next day, the whole surrounding area was all just burnt to ash, just totally black. But the grounds of the shrine were untouched. It was seen as an emerald island in a sea of ash. And the coolest thing is all the fence posts around the grounds were charred on the outside of the grounds and untouched on the inside of the grounds. And there actually at one point were a few of these fence posts saved, I believe. So just untouched. And so that was a big thing in kind of making the shrine more well known, where, that was 1871 that happened. And so for the next 140 years, people would always go to the shrine. There's a big amount that go for, Saturdays, who would go for the Assumption, especially on August 15th was the biggest day. And so I grew up 5 minutes from the shrine in a town called Luxembourg. And so just growing up, my family, my mom especially, knew of it. I think she had grown up going there because she was from Brussels, another very Belgian community not too far away from there. And so I just kind of ended up serving at the shrine most Saturdays when I was a child. I became good friends with one of the people who lived at the shrine because his parents were the caretakers. That man is now Father Simon Tips, who's based not too far from me in Wanakee, actually.
Shout out Father Simon.
And so, I'd serve with him, every Saturday for years and years and years. And so in 2010, when I was in 6th grade, my best Catholic flex is that I actually served for the Mass where Bishop Ricken declared it to be a true apparition site on December 8th, 2010. And so that marked it being officially the first approved apparition site in America and one of about, 24-ish in the world. And so, that's kind of what catapulted it to the level of, I guess, fame's not the best word, but the fame that it is today, where now it brings in thousands of people from across the country, across the world. There's big events, the Walk to Mary is a big pilgrimage to the shrine every May. And so a lot of things just to help more people see the love of God through his beloved mother, our beloved mother.
And the incredible thing about Champion is, I've been to a lot of these pilgrimage sites around the world, whether it's, St. Peter's Basilica, or last year we took a trip and voyage down to Our Lady of Guadalupe down in Mexico. You go to Assisi, and these are all very well-known places, and thousands to millions of people go for pilgrimages to these places. And so I kind of thought the same thing about Our Lady of Champion. Catholics, we love Mary, we love the Rosary, and if she's the only Marian-approved apparition in all of the United States, you'd think it would be this, grand place, this huge church, that there's all, sorts of stuff that goes on there. But it's just this very humble, quiet place. There's a small church and, kind of a small area just surrounded by cornfields, just surrounded by America and God's country.
Oh, you get to smell the manure of the cows as you drive into the shrine. And it's very humble.
It is.
But it's very peaceful. Like, I was with you in Mexico City. I've been to Fatima in Portugal, and it's, beautiful. Mary's been, her spirit's present there in a tangible way as well, but it's a big concrete parking lot, basically. And so to go to the shrine where it is just, like you said, it's humble, it's small, it's, very not opulent.
Right.
It's just surrounded by farm fields and forests. But you go there and you feel so much of this supernatural peace in your heart, just being at the grounds. And so it's just, it's a beautiful place to visit, place to pray. And it's a great brag that we in Wisconsin have Mary's one apparition site.
This is true.
It just makes us feel all so good.
Yeah, and let's keep talking about the great state of Wisconsin.
We really should.
You're a champion of Our Lady of Champion,
of course,
but you're also a great champion for the state of Wisconsin writ large. Potentially right now, folks, this might be Sam's first podcast interview, but in the future we hope to be able to say, Governor Sam Larson was on the Vox Pauli podcast once upon a time. But you do have a great love for the state of Wisconsin. Could you speak about it a little bit?
Well, God gave mankind reason and intellect, and if you have reason, you have to acknowledge that Wisconsin is the best state. So it's really as simple as that. I can't. What else is there to say? But we got Mary, we got the Shrine of Guadalupe in La Crosse, Holy Hill. Look, God loves all his children equally, but he loves Wisconsin more. So
this is true,
and that's just a fact.
Now, in addition to the church in Wisconsin, of course, we have many, many great places. You mentioned a few: Holy Hill, the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Champion,
St. Paul's, of course.
St. Paul's Catholic Student Center, the best Newman Center in the country.
Of course.
We have my favorite church in the world, St. Joseph's Basilica. Just so many, many, many great places. But you also love, the secular things about the state of Wisconsin. Speak about those a little bit.
Well, you got God's football team, the Green Bay Packers.
This is true. The green and gold, baby, never die.
You got the Milwaukee Brewers, who, God in his great love gives us different means to mortify ourselves in this present the temporal life. And so I like to think that one day when I die and I'm at the pearly gates, God will be like, Sam, you would have had a long time in purgatory, but luckily you were a Brewers fan. So boy, head on into heaven. You've done your time.
Well, we hope by this point, when this podcast releases, the Brewers have already won the NLDS. We'll be on to the NLCS.
There's a non-zero chance that when we talk next, or when they hear this, we will have gotten knocked out of the NLDS as well.
This is true. So we should all prepare our hearts to be absolutely wrecked and broken at another, Brewers postseason loss. And at this point, should our hearts really be wrecked, because we should have, known this was
They will still be wrecked
by this point. But if the Brewers win the World Series, I'm making the promise to you here that Sam and I will be back on here with a massive Brewers party.
We will be.
And in addition to talking about Our Lady of Champion and the glories of Mary and the Holy Catholic Church, we'll talk about the glories of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Of course. And instead of a coffee in our hands, it might be other fine libation, perhaps.
That's true. And another fine libation, speak about your love of beer and drinks and whatnot.
Well, what a way to put it, Andrew. Well, look, the Catholics have about approximately 25 patron saints of beer, so I'm a good company, I like to think. I enjoy bartending. It's a great way. Hey, look, we'll share some wise words from a wise man. Father Eric Nielsen, former pastor of St. Paul's, when I was an intern here a couple years back, he would say a couple times how eating dinner together is so good because food just has this way of bringing mankind together in ways that other things don't, which I think is totally correct. And I think that, of course, when done properly, prudently, having drinks together it does the same thing. Getting a beer with the boys, watching the Brewer game, like, come on, that's God can be present there.
It's a foretaste of heaven.
It really is. It really is.
And it's true. There's that statement in vino veritas, where there is wine, there is truth.
That's right. What's the other quote on there's a quote about wine from one of the, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know a lot of quotes, not this one.
Okay. Well, when I think of it later on the podcast, I'll let you know.
Lovely. Why don't you give the people a rundown? It's getting into the fall time. Autumn's approaching. The foliage is starting to come in. If they're looking for a nice fall drink, or maybe they're hearing this around November, December, they're preparing for a Christmas party. Let's give the people a couple drinks, a little out of the ordinary. Not just your spotted cows,
of course.
Not just your gin and tonics, but as an experienced bartender yourself who knows quite a variety of drinks, give the people a little taste of what's in the Sam Larson repertoire.
Okay, let me give you guys, in my mind, one of the best fall drinks. So I'm a huge Moscow Mule fan because they're just very versatile. And so how do you make a Moscow Mule more of a fall drink? Well, here's what you do. Instead of the vodka, you're using bourbon. Warms the soul, And they're going to toss in a little bit of apple cider, a little bit of cranberry juice, along with, the normal lime juice or lemon juice, and then some ginger beer. And now you got this cranberry apple, like Kentucky Mule, and it is one of the best fall drinks, I would say.
Wow, that sounds phenomenal. Hopefully, maybe next time, in addition to for the Brewers win.
With the Brewers win, of course.
That's right. We'll have
this drink as well. Yeah,
lovely. All right. Well, you've mentioned a couple things, in your story. Our Lady of Champion means a lot to you. You love the state of Wisconsin, but we haven't heard a whole lot about you personally, Sam.
Well, we're trying to save them from that. They don't need to hear the good stuff.
But you do have an interesting story in terms of how you got to be. You eventually were an intern here at St. Paul's. You now work full-time fundraising for St. Paul's. And so how did you get to this point of, falling in love with the Lord and eventually, it kind of being your career?
Yeah. Well, I think, every good story starts at the beginning. And for me, that was just, I think, growing up, very blessed to grow up in a very devout, holy family. My mom's an angel. My dad is a very, very good man. And so growing up, my mom had always worked to instill in us just this deep, profound love of Mary. And truly, I credit most things in my life to Mary, with, of course, the understanding that, Mary is just the medium by which God the Father gives us all these good things. Right. But just having that devotion to Mary from a young age, I truly think has made the biggest difference in my life. And so growing up, we, pray the rosary every night, or as much as a family with 4 young kids can truly pray a rosary. There was people, shouting, crying, but we tried, darn it, we tried. Just from that young age, a very strong faith foundation was rooted in me by my parents, to the point where, when I came to Madison, came to school here, there was no question in my mind that, like, no matter what, I was going to be at Mass on Sundays. I was going to go to confession when I needed to go to confession, which was, frankly, all the time. Even, like, those first couple years in college where, was that personal relationship with Jesus there? Not at all. Was I living life as I should have been? At that point, I really, no, I wasn't. But that foundation was set where it was still a field ready to be sowed, if that, I guess, analogy makes sense. And so, for me, I think the biggest change in my spiritual life during college was just when my junior year, I finally got involved at St. Paul's. Like, before, I went on a retreat my freshman year, and that was great. Went to Mass every Sunday, confession, a Bible study here and there. But I didn't really know a lot of the people. And then my junior year, I just, one buddy of mine, Ryan Wexler, shout out if he's listening.
Shout out.
He just kept inviting me to stuff. Like, hey, come to moving out of my place, come to this, come to that. And that just, really helped me actually get to know people. When all of a sudden, I had friends at St. Paul's. Because before, I was in this, it was kind of like a frat house, the Evans Scholars on Langdon Street. It's a bunch of golf caddies. Awesome place, love the Scholars. And so it was a great community there. Yeah, I had great friends, but there wasn't that faith aspect per se. So it wasn't like the truly virtuous friendships that you're seeking each other's good.
Yep.
And so, but because of that, I'm like, I don't need more friends at St. Paul's. Like, I have my guys. Like, I'm fine. But then when I finally came to St. Paul's and got to know these people, I just really began to see how much I was missing without those virtuous friendships. How much I just was not living the way that I was intended to live. And so pretty quickly, once I got involved with the friends, I just got super involved with St. Paul's itself. Soon I was leading retreats, involved in everything, and just kind of snowballed super quickly.
Sure.
Where, my senior year when Father Erikson, who at that point, I'm not sure he knew my name, to be frank, but he's like, hey, you should think about being an intern next year. And so at first I told him, oh yeah, I'll think about it. Which in my mind meant not a snowball's chance in hell would I be an intern here. But then I thought about it, and for those who know me know that I don't really plan very much. I'm not the most timely person. Oh, will I make plans? Will I think about the future more than 2 minutes in advance? No. And so it got to, end of first semester, and I'm like, well, I got no jobs, no prospects. I've put in no work to try to find any. I should give an intern a shot. And so I ended up saying yes to Father Eric and being an intern here. I was the freshman intern.
Well, I was a freshman, yeah.
As were you. It's the best position at St. Paul's.
That's right.
And that, I think, actually is kind of funny because a lot of my friends who have been an intern as well, they have the problem of, oh, how do I tell my parents? Because, understand, like, as your parents pour in and help you, pay for college, and as they just help you along this way, it can be an understandable concern, like, oh, you just graduated. Why do you want to go back and work for the church for a year instead of using the gifts you've developed now to go have a good job? And my mom was not that. She was not in that camp. To quote her, if I can try to, I think she said something along the lines of, Sam, it sounds like if you take this job, you'll come out of it with a wife. You're taking that job. So long story short, my mom was wrong.
So where's the ring?
That's a great question. There's not one yet.
Yeah. In addition to a future Catholic governor and, our Lady of Champion expert around here, Sam Larson is also the most eligible bachelor in all the state of Wisconsin.
Being an intern was the best year of my life, hands down. Just really learning how to form good, virtuous friendships, how to pour into others, how to sacrifice. I think that year, the one thing I wanted to focus on the most was how can I just grow in obedience as much as I possibly can? Because believe it or not, a college-age guy doesn't know, he might think that he's right most of the time. I know, kind of a surprise. And so I just want to focus on how can I be radically obedient to my superiors and like radically available to everybody around me. And that went against who I was a lot, but that was the best thing I ever did, was just trying to grow in that way. Wow. And so I credit a lot to Father Erikson and Father Tim Morgan, who's here as well, just for really helping me grow so much that year, because Lord knows I needed it.
Yeah. Besides God, our Father, who's your ultimate superior, you did mention your superior in the work we do here at St. Paul's was the great Father Erikson.
Of course.
Who I think almost every guest has mentioned at least some point in their testimony. But you had a particularly close relationship with Father Eric, living in the rectory and working with him for a year. And I'd love to hear a story or two, if you have one to share, about Father Erikson.
So Father Erikson is very good at, people say yes when you ask for something. And granted, in this case, I told myself that I would say yes, so it makes more sense. But so for context, once again, I was the freshman intern my intern year. And so the freshman intern program had just been developed that previous year. And so we were really still kind of in the process of establishing how is this freshman ministry going to look going forward. And so at this point in year two of it, it was much more first semester heavy, like very much the focus on, at least for the intern's position, how can we get as many freshmen as we can in the doors right away before they have the chance to go out, kind of fall off the bandwagon. Like, how can we just really get them here and give them a beautiful community right from the get-go? And so because of that, because it was so first semester heavy, second semester, I did not have nearly as much to do. And Father kind of knew this. And so he would assign me a lot of odd jobs around St. Paul's, which included being for some reason, the head cook for when the bishop came to the mission and cooking 350 meals for 3 nights in a row. But one of the oddest ones was one day he was coming down from the chapel for morning coffee before the Easter Vigil, about a week before. And he looks at me and he's like, Sam, when you walk down from the chapel, there are all these spider webs outside the windows above or below the mosaic. With all the people coming to the vigil next week, I want you to go in and clean the windows so that they look nice when people come for Easter. And I was like, okay, I'll do that, Father, absolutely. And then I was kind of figuring out how to do this. And I'm like, well, the windows are like 12 feet above the ground. There's not much of a landing area to get to them. And so what I ended up having to do to clean these windows is I had to crawl out of this small window. First I had to climb onto this big dais in the narthex outside the chapel, crawl out this small window with like the mop bucket and this big long extendy Swiffer type pole. I had to crawl. There's like a little landing there, and there's about a 4-inch wide ledge that extends onto this wider landing below the mosaic where the windows are. And so I had to press my body to the wall and scale along this 4-inch wide ledge, carrying like a mop bucket and a mop, get to the landing, and then I just clean these windows. And these windows were disgusting. I was out there probably like 3 days in a row trying to clean these stupid windows. I get all the spider webs off, get all the grime off, clean them up. It was that they only got like half of it off. And so I spent hours, and the best part was when I finished these windows, Father Eric was like, "Oh, great job, Sam. They look so good. Can you just do the rest of the windows too?" And so I spent almost a week in the spring cleaning just about every window in St. Paul's. Mostly we're on ground level, so there's only a minor threat of falling 12 feet to the ground below, but just for those couple. But that was one of the more fun things I did my intern year, I think. So.
Oh, that's fantastic! Wow. So then after your intern year and your part-time job as the window cleaner of St. Paul's, you then went to go work at the Capitol.
I did.
In politics.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah. So when I was in college, I had interned at the Capitol, as a lot of poli-sci majors do, because when you're a poli-sci major, you really don't have much else to do.
So you're poli-sci in journalism, right?
Political science and journalism. Don't hold that against me.
So coming into school, what's like the dream job?
Oh gosh. Coming in, I was going to do political science and history, because I'm like, well, geez, I like politics, I like history. Let's just see what happens with that.
Yep.
And so then I come in my freshman year. I had heard a lot about these FIGs, the first year groups, the first year interest groups that Madison had. And the whole premise is you sign up for a group of classes, not an individual class, and the groups are all centered around a certain topic. And so I saw that the only FIG that had both history credits and political science credits was Russia and the world. And so you would think that most students would take time to look at, what else is in this FIG? Not me. I saw, there's history, there's political science, I'm in. And so that is how,
as you said earlier, you're not much of a,
I'm not much of a planner. Not much of a planner.
Planner.
And that, my friend, is how I walked into first semester Russian, knowing how to say "niet," which is no. I didn't even know how to say yes in Russian. I walked in knowing how to say no. And what I learned was that this is a fully immersive Russian class, which means no English allowed. And so my first day, I walk in, my TA kicks open the door and just walks in, "Здравствуйте, мои люди, меня зовут Адам Дмитриевич, и в этом семестре мы будем говорить о русском языке." And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so naturally, I took 4 more semesters of it afterwards, of course. But that'll go to show, yes, political science guy, walk into class first semester, and I'm like, maybe I'll be a teacher. Maybe honestly, I didn't have much of a plan, to be frank. No plan, teacher maybe. But intern at the Capitol, had a great time there. I interned for a sweet little Catholic grandma, Joan Ballweg, a very, very good woman. She was Assembly, then Senate. And so I really, credit her a lot for helping me kind of grow in those couple semesters I was at the Capitol. But yeah, then left St. Paul's after that. And I knew some people at the Capitol from my time interning. So when my job here was done, I had been in talks with one of them. And he's like, "Hey, we got an opening in our office. You should come in and apply." And so I applied, went in, talked to the senator. He liked me enough to give me the job. And so I was there for about a little over a year before I got the call again to come back to St. Paul's. So.
Wow. There you go. Well, your story kind of weaves in a lot of different directions, but you mentioned, Russia and your love of Our Lady, and think about that connection, that Our Lady of Fatima, what was the promise?
Promise was that, Russia's heirs will spread across the world. What a positive, cheery note, Andrew.
Right. Our Lady of Fatima.
Look what that turned out for us, for the world.
If Russia does not consecrate itself to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, then its heirs will spread throughout the world. Yeah, and unfortunately for them,
boy, did they.
Russia was not consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and we know the plagues and errors of Russia that have spread since then. But we still pray for the conversion of Russia,
of course,
and perhaps maybe Sam will have some sort of role to play in that.
Of course.
So you mentioned your love of history. You love history. I know you're kind of a Renaissance man. You love, working out. You love sports, but you love the church. You love the faith, and you also have a great love of history. And a particular area of interest for you are Catholic kings. And
Yes.
a lot of times when Sam is passionate about something, he'll just peek his head out of his computer at the development office and go, "Did you know?" And then he'll go on for something. And one thing that he was mentioning last week was this book that he read about Catholic kings. Mm-hmm. And so I asked Sam to come here today with a couple stories of some of these kings and talking about the great glories of the Catholic king, the Catholic monarchy in medieval Europe.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of this just goes back to, I'm very passionate about men today knowing how to be men. And I feel like a lot of times today, it's easy to think like, okay, if you're a Catholic man, like what does it mean to be virtuous? And today, it looks much different than it did a couple years ago. So I think it's just so important for guys to see like that good masculine strength and like just being virtuous, manly men looks like a lot of different forms. And a lot of them we've kind of forgotten or have ignored. And so I love the notion of just these good Catholic kings who, yes, they were warriors. They were fearsome in defense of Christianity against invading threats, but also they were, kind to the poor. They were just, they were charitable. They were just these good men. And one of my favorites is Blessed Karl of Austria. So he's a more recent one. I think he was in the late 1800s. And so fun fact, Karol Wojtyła, Pope John Paul II, my namesake.
Shout out.
That's right. Big fan. He was named Karol after Karl of Austria.
Okay.
So he was, I think, oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong, which is embarrassing, but I want to say he was the nephew of Franz Ferdinand, the one who, when he was killed, plunged the world into World War I.
Right.
And so he was the emperor, or at least in line to be the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire at this time. But yeah, just once again, a good, faithful man, strong marriage, many kids, daily mass, just living out the Catholic life as any man can in the station he was in as a monarch in the Western world. And just a great example of that and of being virtuous in your position. Or another even more recent one, King Baudouin of Belgium, where he's now servant of God Baudouin. He died just in 1993. He was declared a servant of God 2024 by Pope Francis. Wow. And so he's an example where he was reigning in Belgium, very popular. He abdicated his throne in like 1963 or so because the Belgian parliament passed a bill legalizing abortion. And the job of the king is to sign every bill that gets to his desk. And so he said, I cannot sign this. I will not. And so that honestly caused a minor constitutional crisis. And so the agreement that was reached that he would abdicate his throne instead of signing this bill. And so he abdicated his throne. The bill was passed. But the public outcry that he abdicated was so severe that the people put him back into power in like 36 hours.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So another great Catholic king. Or even like you got people like Saint King Louis IX of France.
Yeah.
Led one of the Crusades. So generous with the poor. Just this God-fearing, holy man. Or my favorite was his cousin, King Saint Fernando the second or third, one of the two. He was of Spain. An incredible person. Helped lead and kind of finish the Reconquista in Spain to reclaim Spain for Catholicism. But the last one I'll say, my one of my favorite ones, just because it's such like a niche, fun like historical tidbit. Andrew, if I were to ask you who was the first European to discover America, who would you say?
Christopher Columbus.
You'd be wrong, because to be fair, there are probably a few different options. The one I'm the biggest fan of is, of course, my Norwegian forebear, Leif Erikson. I just learned recently, Leif Erikson, he was a Christian, or I guess at this point, everyone was Catholic. He was a Catholic in the court of King Saint Olaf of Norway. And so, King Saint Olaf, King Saint Olaf is still known as like the eternal king of Norway because he united Norway for the first time in this kingdom. And so Leif Erikson was a member of his court, converted when he was there, I think. He went back and he helped convert a lot of Greenland. And so the first church in the Western Hemisphere was built by Leif and his mother in Greenland, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, and so another just fun little tidbit where, you think of the Vikings and you're like, oh, yeah, these marauding bands of just fearsome warriors, which is true, but the Vikings, by and large, almost all became Christian. And what caused them to become Christian was when they saw fearsome, mighty Christian kings who they weren't like the peaceful monks getting slaughtered, which was a beautiful thing, but the Vikings don't respect that. But when they see like a fearful king, these mighty men who, fought for the faith. That caused a lot of the Vikings to see like, oh, there might be something here because I respect this. And so, God works in all different means through all different men to spread his gospel. For different peoples, it takes different things. And a little fun fact that's kind of what helped with the Vikings.
The more you know.
The more you know. There
The
you
more
go.
you know. Well, you're
Also, a fun fact to tie it all together. Did you know that Leif Erikson Day is a holiday in the United States of America?
I did not.
It was started in Wisconsin,
When are we celebrating?
October 9th.
Wow.
The feast day of Our Lady of Champion is Leif Erikson Day in
So
Wisconsin.
we not only had Sam to talk about Our Lady of Champion, but also for Leif Erikson.
Hinga dinga durga.
Happy Leif Erikson Day to all who celebrates.
That's right. I
On the
celebrate.
Vox Pauli. Well, you're a bit of a, paradoxical man.
boy.
You love to drink temperately, of course, but you also love to work out. You love kings, but you also love America, who started by protesting against the kings.
That's right.
Talk to us about your love of
boy.
America. You have the floor.
See, what's funny is that you say, we hope that you're governor someday, but if this podcast is ever viral, I'll never be governor someday. When they hear me say that a Catholic monarchy is probably the best form of government in the world. But let me clarify that. For the longest time, there's these notions from a lot of philosophers about, what is the best form of government, and most agree that you want that unitary ruler. And so, Plato talks about the philosopher kings. And even like Thomas Hobbes talks about the Leviathan. Now, granted, Hobbes is very much like, it's bleak, it's dour, it's not the most Christian thing, but the recognition of a single figure is going to be the most efficient ruler. Okay. Efficiency is not always good, though, because you can be efficiently bad. And so, but the reason why, Catholic monarchies or things like that just seems to be, a good way is because that most closely resembles the truth. God the Father in heaven, God in heaven is very clearly the single ruler of all. And now the problem with monarchies is that, if you have a great king, awesome. If you don't, well, best of luck to you. And that's why people like America, or people like John Locke with his social contract theory, which helped influence America, that's all like checks and balances, and how can we keep the power out of just one person because of that reason. And so it makes a lot of sense because mankind is flawed. But just the notion that, if you do have a moral king, like, look at King Louis of France, King Ferdinand of Spain, people like that, King Baudouin, King, Karl of Austria. That's a recognition of if you have this person who's guided by good morals, guided by these Christian ideals, guided by the truth of Christ, they can have the efficiency of rule that you want as a king, they want a ruler, but they're not going to fall victim to the same vices that a tyrant would. Like, you look at most of history, whenever there's a king, there's a lot of bad kings. So is monarchy the best form of government? In a utopia, yes. Are we in a utopia? No.
No.
And so that's why things like, our constitutional republic, not democracy, republic,
very clear.
I
think that's probably the most well-used phrase from Sam Larson is America is not a democracy, it's a republic.
Lest we forget. You want to be right about these things.
That's right. But talk a little bit more about America, the glory.
Where do I begin?
The military, the football, your favorite things. You have the floor.
I mean, it's hard to just walk around the world today. I guess, to walk around where we are today in the world, in Madison, in Wisconsin, in America, maybe more so in Wisconsin, in America, and realize, and not just think, wow, how blessed are we? We have a place where, we can go and we can say what we think. We have a place where we are free to worship God and we're not persecuted for it. We have the ability to talk bad about how awful the Bears are and we won't get thrown in jail for it, at least not in Wisconsin.
Amen.
No, I mean, it's beautiful where we've seen the fruits of what, when our founders set up the country, they founded it on the ideals of, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. They founded it on Christian ideals, on the recognition of the dignity of mankind and how good that freedom is to pursue the good. Because that's what freedom is. Freedom is not the ability to do what we want. Freedom is the ability to do as we ought. And
that rhymes.
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Shout out St. John Paul.
What can we say?
That's right.
It's just easy to walk around and realize, like, wow, how blessed are we to live in this place where we have all these great things, where we have the wealth we do to live comfortably, which is great. Obviously, that's not the ultimate good by any stretch, but no, we're blessed here. And so it's just so good to be grateful for all the gifts that we have, because gratitude is that first step towards love for a lot of people. And so you want to be grateful when you realize just, how good things are here.
That's right. Yeah. And I know we're in a little bit of a podcast studio here, but I think I just saw an eagle fly through the room.
Is that George Washington standing over your shoulder?
Is that him crossing the Delaware over there?
Crossing the Fox River, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Going to God's country, the shrine of later champion. Yep.
You kind of mentioned it in your story a little bit, but I'd love to close with, why you decided to come back to St. Paul's and why you care about this place in the first place. Why do you care about St. Paul's, Mr. Sam?
Why do I care about St. Paul's? I care about St. Paul's selfishly because of all that it did for me. Because I would not be anywhere near where I am spiritually, even like just with my friends. Like St. Paul's gave me most of what I have right now. Mm-hmm. So selfishly, like I'm just eternally grateful for that. But even I look around, and I look at, I have a sister who came through St. Paul's as well. 2 younger brothers, one of whom is still here in school right now, all who came through St. Paul's. And just, they're all just so rock solid in their faith, which I'm just so grateful for as a brother. But just to see every student who walks through the doors, just to see the joy they bring, the faith they have, the way that they bring Christ out onto campus. And, we were talking about Wisconsin before. I love Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin so much. And you want the future of Wisconsin to be as good as it can be. And where does that come from? That comes from helping the next generation have the faith and grow strong in the faith. And what better place for that to really bring that to them than at the flagship university in Wisconsin. And so I'm grateful to St. Paul's for what it can do for the future of the state, for, the Midwest and beyond at large. And yeah, I'm here because I think that there's no more impactful Catholic institution in the state of Wisconsin. And so to do whatever little part I can to help that, I'll do what I can.
That's beautiful, Sam.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, if you have any last words for the people.
What do you want my last words to be on? Give me a prompt here, Andrew.
I don't know, just one final message to really bring it home.
If you want to support the mission of St. Paul's, let me know. We'll talk.
Go to utopcatholic.org/give. No, in reality, Sam, thank you very much for coming on. We hope that you have a blessed feast day of Erik Erikson. Is that his name?
Leif Erikson.
Leif Erikson.
Well, he's not a saint technically. So, enjoy the holiday, Leif Erikson.
Of Leif
but
Erikson.
Have a great solemnity of Our Lady of Champion.
Amen to that. And with that, we're going to do 2 final pray for us. Our Lady of Champion.
Pray for us.
And St. Paul. Pray for us. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Vox Pauli. Stay tuned for next week, but thank you. And in the meantime, Pax and Godspeed.